Hello everyone, welcome to episode 16 of the Crush Cash Games series. As always, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I would very much appreciate it. It means the world to me. These videos take a fair amount of time to put together, and I hope that I'm giving you some high quality material that really increases your win rate, helps your game, makes you money, and I hope that in some ways that the things that you learn from watching me play show you that it is possible to make a living playing poker professionally, that you can do it, and hopefully I can expedite the process and make it a much easier ordeal than when I first started out and when I first started learning how to beat the game. Because there weren't, when I first started out, there weren't a ton of people that had a lot of information, and there really wasn't any poker training sites. There wasn't Run It Once. There wasn't even Card Runners back then. You just had to read articles written by Phil Hellmuth in Card Player magazine, but even those weren't exactly super strategy oriented. They were more storytelling, and I have to say I love the storytelling aspect of it. I love it more than the strategic aspect of it. If you subscribe to my newsletters, I think you'll see that telling stories, and if you read my blog, telling stories is way more fun to me than writing about just the hardcore strategical aspect of poker. So, ace jack off, we squeezed it from the big blind facing a button open. This particular opponent looks to be down a buy-in already, so kind of thought they would be opening light on the button. We're more than willing to get it in four-handed with ace jack off for his short buy-in. Didn't really expect the 3-seat to call from the small blind. We got a good flop with great equity, having the nut flush draw and a bunch of blockers. I have to assume that the 3-seat just had a pocket pair and, trying to set mine against us. The 9s is a tricky spot because now this is very interesting, because I don't think on this particular board that our opponent has very much. We checked it back, hoping to get a bet on the turn out of his air when he bricks, and we also have tons of equity. This is a great flop. This opponent seems to be 3-betting us 17%, so flatting pre, even while allowing him to have initiative, our hand has him dominated. A large percent of the time we can withstand some pressure post flop, so I like flatting versus 4-betting with this strong of a hand. If we had a weaker type hand like 7-8 suited or ace-x suited, I think you can make an argument for 4-betting those type of hands more than a pocket pair like 9s. So, as it turns out, we did get paid. I think our check back on the flop disguised our hand some. It made it look like we were, more full of it than otherwise. As it turns out, he actually did flop top pair and appeared to be going for a pot control line. And my analysis pre-flop was pretty much on the money. He was 3-betting us light. If we did 4-bet him, he would have folded. We had a hand that he had very, very, very little equity against with 8 trays suited. You always want to keep the bottom of their range in, and it's even okay if they have initiative, because that just allows them to throw away a couple of bets post-flop. You do have to be able to trust yourself to make optimal decisions post, to not fold when you're very much ahead. And I think that comes with experience and time spent playing post flop and really analyzing situations, asking yourself questions, becoming more and more comfortable. On the whole, my tables don't look exceptionally great. Top right, stealing with ace jack off. See betting tiny on this flop. Again, it's something that I feel people misuse the tiny continuation bet, because they do it where their range is very polarized and give an aggressive player a chance to bluff them and get a really good price on it. So I don't want to overuse the little tiny continuation bet. In this spot, I was trying to give him a good price to bluff, considering he's a pretty aggressive thus far, but he just wasn't going to take our bait. If we check back the flop, a lot of times the danger of checking back is they might think we have an ace, or we have a hand with showdown value that we're just trying to get to showdown, and one bet isn't going to win it for them. So we want to induce a little spew. Flopping top pair after defending the king 8 suited. Very tiny bet. Leads me to believe he doesn't have very much of a hand. I think we could get away with just flatting here. We could also get away with raising. It appears as if the mood I was in was hoping to induce this guy to do something a little silly with a pretty weak hand. But if we took his bet sizing into account, I think the best way to proceed probably would have been to hope that he just continues firing away and we basically just call him down with our top pair that has him in a bit of a pinch. C-betting the ace king off. Do we c-bet the turn on this particular board with it's really tough with our opponent calling out of position. He could have a lot of jacks in his range. Tens is somewhat questionable. The problem with calling out of position with tens in that spot is our hand doesn't hold up very well against multiple bets. But then again, calling out of position on queen jack jack rainbow also deters people from betting because you have so many jacks in your range. Queen tray for two hearts. Going to be a board that our opponents miss a large percent of the time, yet they're still going to c-bet it. I think his thinking leads me to believe that maybe he was a little suspicious of our bet, but doesn't matter. That even if they're suspicious, they have to they gotta grow a pair and float in position with very weak hands, when most of the time after facing a check raise on the flop, they're going to be facing a turn bet. So do they want to invest all of that, all of those extra bets, trying to pick up a pot that's $40 or a generally small pot? That's sort of the power that we wield by check raising on the flop. We gain initiative, and not only do we put the fear of the current bet into them, we put the fear of future bets as well. Squeezing here with the ace-king off. Looks like a good spot. Definitely getting it in if the button does anything. Decides to 4-bet us. We're for sure shipping. Would be heavenly if the 3-seat opted to just stick a stack in, but unfortunately he didn't. I have to believe that our line on this particular flop is going to be bet, bet, bet. Even with ace-king high, it's very hard for him to flop a set. Most of the time with sets, he's going to raise us on the flop or turn, especially on that type of board. So once we can eliminate the sets and the 2 pairs and the straights, actually a straight may just, you know, call, call, call. But that's pretty much it. Once we can eliminate the top of his range from the hands he's likely to have, it gives us a great opportunity to blow him off most of his 1-pair type hands. Can't 4-bet the squeeze with the jack-9 off because of stack sizes. Although I'm sure, knowing me, it went through my mind. Kind of an interesting flat by the 1-seat after flatting us. What kind of hand would we think he has? 6-6 tray. And he just instantly folds, so probably not a pocket pair. He probably gets it in with a pocket pair. So king queen, some hand like king queen, ace jack, ace 10 seem to be the logical hands he could have in that situation. I can actually just take a second here. Hope nothing happens in the video while I'm looking this up. Folding the pocket 4s. That's pretty reasonable considering guy only has about $80. Betting on the turn with our open-ended draw. What does that mean? A minimum check raise on this board. Does he really have lots of value in his range? It's a spot where we can peel. I can also make a great argument for re-raising his bet on the turn. He obviously gave us a great price to peel for our straight, and that can't possibly be you know, a negative play. But I just wonder if betting and then re-raising him on the turn is an even better play. As it turns out, the dealer in that particular hand that I so confidently said had king queen or ace jack did in fact have the 7-4 suited. So he flopped a gut shot, and the big blind, who we had a feeling was squeezing, had the king 10 off. So I was right about the big blind, and he didn't have very much, and had the button had king queen or ace jack, I don't think a back raise wouldn't have been the worst play. Just stuffing it in, a likely squeezing opponent's face. 7-4, kind of hard to justify. Hard to justify calling with that hand. I mean, what's your best hope? That you flop bottom pair, middle pair, a flush draw? Not really very much hope with that hand. And frankly, I mean, he got a gut shot with more than likely live cards and some fold equity. So I couldn't really fault him had he just shipped the flop. Which leads me to believe that his call is even worse, just because he had no plan, didn't know what he was going to do on specific boards, didn't know how to react, and basically just, was hoping to flop something. And like, 9-7 deuce, I guess, is a board that he just gets it in. Generally, if you're calling pre and you don't have a plan, you don't know what to do next, like you're probably making a mistake, but there's also the opportunity to learn how do I improve next time? How do I do better? Overbet chip at the bottom left. Don't really need to look the hand up. He just had 8-10. That's what they always have when they 10x ship it. They have the nuts, and they're just praying that we made 2 pair. I saw an interesting hand that Bart Hansen posted on his Twitter feed a couple of days ago, where the board ran out, a flush on the board. One guy had the nut flush, the ace high hearts, and on a queen jack 10 board, and the other guy just shipped it for 1200 into 200. And the nut flush just, took about 2 seconds to make their decision and called, and the other guy showed him a straight flush. And, Bart analyzed the hand pretty well and said, played devil's advocate, like it looks like a cooler. What can you do? But the thing is when somebody ships 1200 into 200, they have to know that if you have the nut flush, that the nut flush is in your range. You can have what appears to be the nuts. And if they know that you can have, you're very capable and liable to have what you would consider the nuts, then they must know something that you don't. You have to be winning in that spot more than 46% of the time to call a 6x shove, and we're just not. I think it's a pretty simple fold. Interesting hand at the Jack 10 suited in the top right. It looks like we got a succession of straddles. 12, 38, 70 something. Really sad, because I wanted to play that Jack 10. Cold 5 betting from the big blind would have looked pretty strong. Unlikely to make aces fold, though. No matter how many times I try to make aces fold pre-flop, they just never... I could never make it happen. At the bottom right, if we do get, if it's 4-bet to us, we may consider folding our aces pre-flop. No, I'm kidding, obviously. We'll never, ever in a cash game situation. I do like, it's a mixed bag, 3-betting aces from the big blind versus an under the gun raiser. The reason it's a mixed bag is it looks super strong, and we're less likely to get loose action. But They also raised under the gun, so they're more likely to have a stronger hand than they would be from the blinds. Isolating the 9-5 suited at the top right. This guy's not raising pre very much, which leads me to believe he's limping a lot of his pocket pairs and stuff like that we're not going to get folds out of, but he's also folding a high percent to continuation bets. And when a player is limping and folding to a high percent of continuation bets, there is a great opportunity to be had. We can raise very light in position, isolate him, and then just massacre him with continuation bets. And a super important thing that you have to remember when you are exploiting somebody in that manner, when you do get resistance, just give up. Like, we have a profitable spot. We raise, they call, we continuation bet. Most of the time we win. We're making money with that situation. When they give us resistance, they actually have something. They have flopped a pair. Don't go nuts and lose the extra bets, because those extra bets are what our opponent is counting on to make his play more profitable. He's hoping that when he flops a hand, he's going to get paid. And if that's his strategy, we are not going to pay him unless we have the goods. In which case, he's going to pay us. So, basically, his strategy is just flawed all around. King, queen off, under the gun. None of my tables look to be, exceptionally good. We have a couple of weak spots at the top left. The top right, looks like the 2-seat is going to be a weak spot. The weak player that's never raising pre is also, we're going to be able to exploit him. Opting to flat the 10s. Opting to flat the 10s at the top right. We expect him to bet. Also, strange at the top left. We 3-bet pre, got called. I really believe we can kind of go nuts and make this guy fold most of his pocket pairs. Just appears as if we decided to give up for whatever reason. I think the better play would have been just to go ahead and go crazy. Check raising the turn with the 10s, not a very orthodox play. I do believe that he's going to bet some of the a lot of hands that do beat us. I don't know if he's going to call our check raise with the hands that beat us. He will call the check raise with some hands that we beat. Flush draws, straight draws, stuff like that. We never want to give our opponents opportunities to just, play against us perfectly while in position. When we're out of position, it's necessary to take more risks. We have to take the risk that our opponent could have top set, he could have 2-pair, he may call us with ace queen or aces, but by check raising him, we keep him a little more honest, and we make him lose the ability to be able to just value bet the hell out of us. Getting it in with the king queen at the bottom left. Basically on the turn, when he bet pot, he's either got it or he has some sort of draw. We don't want to call. because that way he's not going to bet his busted draw on the river, and he gets to play the river perfectly against us. And if he does have a set and we're planning on paying off the river anyway, then he's just going to value bet us. So the only way to get it in against a draw where we have good equity is to put the last bet in on the turn. If we get 3-bet with the 5-6 suited, my hope is that we 4-bet this guy. One of my favorite 4-betting spots. Opponents get a little too aggressive on the button with low equity or medium equity type hands. Like ace-jack off, for instance, will 3-bet us there. They won't do anything against a 4-bet. They'll just fold. And I think it's a leak in people's game. A lot of players don't want to play post-flop. They don't want to take dominating hands in position post-flop. They would rather 3-bet and then leave it up to me to either 4-bet bluff and make them fold, or 4-bet with hands that dominate them. And I would much rather call on the button with ace-jack, take a range that pretty much crushes their range, put them in tough spots post-flop that are going to be advantageous for me. If I'm going to be 3-betting the button right there, I would rather just 3-bet 8-deuce off, knowing that my opponent is very likely to fold. Maybe I haven't been 3-betting that often, and I can turn, you know, a neutral hand that's not making us any money into a profitable hand that, if I were to flat, has minimal equity post-flop. And true, you do have to deal with getting squeezed from the blinds and playing against squeezes, but it's just another one of those things that you have to learn how to do. You have to get experience in dealing with it. Aces at the top left, hoping for a raise, re-raise, re-raise situation. Unfortunately, it is not to be. This guy is opening quite often, not folding to 3-bets. Very likely to flat our raise, and completely disappoints me. In a lot of situations, we will fold the queen-jack off on the button, but facing an under-the-gun raise from this guy who's raising very often, playing a lot of hands, and playing them quite poorly, we want to take flops in position with hands like queen-jack, king-jack, even king-10. King, 8, rainbow. Looks like we're giving this guy a little float. We don't think he's going to be betting out with a king. Kind of weird, though, that he doesn't let us c-bet. Makes me believe he has a lot of 8s. As it turns out, our float was just fine, and turning a pair was to our detriment. If we don't turn a pair, then we're going to outplay them and win the whole pot. Looks like this video has about a minute and a half left. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. I do enjoy making them, even though they're a lot of work, and sometimes it greatly annoys me when I play bad and then have to show the world. But such is life, right? flatting this raise with queen jack suited against the short stack. I don't really feel comfortable getting it in with the short stack with queen jack suited. I think his get it in range does fairly well against us. So flatting on the button, trying to make a pair seems to be a better strategy. As it turns out, we made 2 pair and got no action, which is what I like to call unfortunate. Thank you guys for listening. Good luck at the tables, and I will catch you next time.